Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. The Outdoor Adventure Series celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. In this episode, we continue our celebration of the National Marine Sanctuaries' 50 years of ocean conservation and stewardship. Our guest today on the Outdoor Adventure Series is Ed Lyman. Ed is a natural resource specialist and regional large whale entanglement response coordinator at the NOAA Hawaiian Islands Humpback National Marine Sanctuary. He works closely with NOAA Fisheries under their Marine Mammal Health and Stranding Response Program and many other partners. Now, for more than 25 years, Ed has worked with NOAA, state agencies, and others to better understand the animals and to address the threats that impact them, especially ship strikes and entanglements. Ed leads the sanctuary's long-term health and risk assessment program that monitors the risk to and health of humpback whales within the sanctuary and nearby waters. Ed, it is a pleasure to have you on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. And man, you have got the most unbelievable job I think I've heard so far.
Well, thanks, Howard. And it's an honor being here with and chatting with you and your audience. So thank you for that. Mahalo to the state of Hawaii.
Mahalo. It's a pleasure. And I feel like I have to do this as well. I have a friend from my leadership coaching realm, Makana, and she's somewhere there. I'll have to share this episode with her. So you are in the beautiful state of Hawaii.
Yes.
And where specifically are you located?
I'm on the island of Maui. It's the sanctuaries, the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuaries main headquarters, main site. And by the way, it's where the highest density of whales are. So it's a good spot to be if you're going to be studying them and responding to them.
I have to admit, and I think I admitted this to John, outside of the Shed Aquarium in Chicago, I've never seen a whale. And I am like so going to take care of this. It's next year at this time, I'm going to say, I've seen a whale. Before we kind of dive into this world that you are in right now, which again, amazing. I can't believe you get to the work that you're doing to help these wonderful animals. Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get to this spot?
Yeah. I didn't plan on it. It was very circuitous route, if you will.
Okay.
And I know I was going to be a medical doctor. I went to school, college, and got the degrees and then started working at the hospitals, like an internship.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't quite the right fit. Something was just off there, but it was close. It was close.
Okay.
Went back and got a master's degree, went back to college and started getting involved in a marine program with Cornell University and University of New Hampshire. I was working at a marine lab, got immersed there. A lot of great people out there at the Shoals Marine Lab. I got bit by the bug there. And then went off and started working with, I kind of knew I wanted to work with whales, kind of put myself in that environment. And then the organization that I started working with to put me in that environment was the Center for Coast Studies out on Cape Cod, whale research, whale response organization, nonprofit. And they were just starting to free whales themselves. We're going to talk about cutting whales free. And I got pulled into that, right. Howard. I didn't plan on it. Just one day they said, we need help and give the helm to someone else and jump in the inflatable with us. And that's the beginning.
When you were growing up, had you had experience as a scuba diver, being in the water? I mean, what was it about the whales that really kind of pulled you in, so to speak? Were they one and the same because of diving, or where did this kind of develop for you?
Yeah, well, it actually started, that change in my path when I was working at the Marine Lab. That's where indeed I learned how to dive. That's where I saw really my first whales, at least close up. And it's just their size and just having an animal that size. They are indeed, we hear this, the charismatic megafauna. And there's a lot of an emotion there in seeing such an animal out in their environment. So, and I admit it kind of pulled me in. It got my interest. Yeah.
And how did you kind of navigate to eventually, here's the NOAA Office of National Marine Sanctuaries?
Understood. Yeah, it's its own little story in itself. So I was back east in New England working at that nonprofit, the Center for Coastal Studies on Cape Cod. And there was two pioneers at the time, Dr. Story Mayo, Dave Matilla, who had started cutting whales breed. And so I'm their first apprentice, as mentioned. And David went on to become the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary's first research coordinator. And when he got that position,
Mhm.
he ended up hurting himself a little bit, but he needed help. We want to talk about how the importance of a team effort. And he asked me to come out and help
Right.
him. Yep. So that's how I got started
Okay.
with the sanctuaries, was that request of,
Okay.
"Yeah, Ed, come be part of the team here in Hawaii."
Perhaps this will be a good segue to the team aspect, but you use the word apprentice. And when I think of apprentice, I think a tradesman, and I'm going to teach you how to be a plumber, an electrician, a how to do wind farms, whatever this might be. How does one begin to apprentice as a whale disentanglement professional?
Right. No, it's an excellent question. It's been a challenging one for us. I mean, there are apprenticeship
Yeah.
programs out there. I know we at the
Uh-huh.
Humpback Whale Sanctuary, I'll be short here now, but the Humpback Whale Sanctuary have
Right.
done some, and back east with the Center for Coastal Studies. But the other means is just, if you have the appropriate skill set, like a fisherman knows gear, a whale biologist knows the whales, you bring those type of people
Hmm.
together, and this is just an example, and have them support and help, have the opportunities to help those that have more experience, that have already gained that experience, work together as a team. And then little by little, along with the opportunities to actually free a whale that come along, and
Hmm.
trainings that you might do. We do trainings all the time. Okay. So there's opportunities there.
Really?
And it's a slow process. I tell the people that I train, it's not something you do overnight. It's going to take years to build up a little bit of experience here to a point where you'll feel comfortable maybe leading that effort. And so this is a national program, I should mention, Howard. It's not just at the Humpback Whale Sanctuary, not just in
Really?
Hawaii, but it's national, global in many ways.
I'm curious, what did it feel like for you the first time you were in the water and actively participating in the disentanglement?
Wow. I mean, well, first, it's all boat based. So there is no on water. And that's a common thought from people, is they think you're going to don the dive
Oh,
gear, jump in
oh,
the water. And it doesn't actually work very well, by the way,
okay.
Howard. I should say
Oh,
that.
okay.
And it's not allowed, by the way.
Okay.
There are authorizations or permits just
Okay.
to keep the animals safe, keep us safe, and the human side. But it's all boat based. And I remember the first time I think I was with Dr. Story Mayo. We were cutting a right whale free, a North Atlantic right whale. So they're a rare species, and it was entangled. I think it was like a subadult. And I just was enthralled. I mean, again, think about that. I think even a subadult, I think it was like 38 feet, 40 feet long. It was up towards that length. And we had it beside the inflatable boat we're working on. And I think we had a tuna spotter, a plane was flying above us, helping us out. Instead of spotting bluefin tuna, we talk about team effort. He came over and was spotting the whale below the surface. And I had a radio to my ear. I was at the helm, and he was telling me, "Ed, you gotta go faster. Go to your right, go to your right, go, slow down, slow down, slow down." And the whale will come up right on the left side of the boat, the port side of the boat. And that was my first experience working with an entangled whale. It was again, a right whale.
So what is the process that you would go into to prepare to disentangle this whale? I look at it as a kind of a project in a way. Somebody notifies you, I could be wrong, that there's a whale out here that's having trouble. And then what happens? Walk us through that process if you wouldn't
Okay.
mind.
Yeah. Another good question. No, a lot of times it's the on water community that is, I call them the foundation of the effort. They they will start
Mhm.
the process. I mean, someone like myself and others that have the training, we're not going to cut a whale free unless we hear about someone's going to find the whale. And then they got to call us. There's
Mhm.
hotlines around the country. Call the hotline. Don't engage the animal by yourself. And they do, the community does. Then they can give us some initial assessment. They're in a sense, first responders. So they're giving us initial assessment, calling the hotline, maybe on the VHF radio, whatever. And then if we're going to be able to respond, we can't always respond, but if we can, standing by, monitoring the animal, we don't lose it. It's funny, a 45-foot whale ends up being a very large needle in a very large or larger haystack in the oceans. And then with that response side, for us, we have our response boat already kind of loaded, which is turnkey. So we get that call, I'm texting the team and saying, whoever get that boat in 20 minutes, and I'm filling in roles. I need a captain, I need disentanglers, I need supporters, documenters. We all run for that boat. And a lot of times we're out there meeting the support team, the people that have reported and monitor the animal within about an hour and a half, which is good. Okay. Not as fast as the U.S. Coast Guard. And then we're going to do some more assessment.
Right.
Really, it's risk assessment. So there's an analogy to be made here, Howard. The whales are patient. And unfortunately, they can't tell us what's wrong. So we've got to assess them, figure out how they're entangled. In this case, we're talking about entanglement, what knife we'll use. And essentially, we need to gain access to our patient. And they may not realize that you're the doctor, so to speak, in our analogy. And so we'll use an old whaling technique. Now I'm generalizing, called kegging. Okay.
Sure.
And this is the old Moby Dick era. The tall ship finds the whale and they launch the skiffs, the wooden skiffs. They row up to the whale and they throw a harpoon at the whale, a Moby Dick. That harpoon was generally not killing the whale. It was attaching to the whale. And they added, once the whale would sound, they got an Nantucket sleigh ride, but they'd have to let go. The whale would sound, it would dive. And they would add a barrel or a keg to the end of the line. That's drag and buoyancy.
Okay.
We're modifying that technique.
Right.
No harpoon. It's a grapple into the entangling gear, attached to the gear. Instead of we get a Nantucket sleigh ride with the inflatable. Instead of the lands that might have killed the whale at the end, we have hook knives on the end of long poles, and we have polyballs, big buoys that will slow the whale down, tire it out, to let us use the knife on the end of the long pole. So it's a modification of an old whaling technique, very methodical, that has generally worked for us very well for our patients.
Okay. You mentioned something a minute or so ago. I mean, you're tracking it down. You are assessing it. You are begin to attach equipment to it to slow it down, tire it, so that it's in a position where you and the team can do the work. And I mean, our perception of whales, it's like right up there with elephants, how smart and intuitive they are. Do these whales know something's going on here? There's YouTube videos galore where the whale, I could swore the whale winked at me and gave me a when they breach and get back in the water. Is there any indication that they know something's going on and they're just like letting you do what you got to do?
I think, Howard, sometimes it's an excellent question. And I have to say from personal experience, there's been times where I've thought so. Our process is very methodical. I mean, we come in, we're hoping the whale will do that. We're hoping it will understand, but if not, at least kind of know what we're doing, generally speaking. So we're very methodical. I call it the introduction. We'll come up, and while we're doing our assessment, we stand off the whale and let it get used to the boat and its approach of the boat, things like that. And I've definitely had cases where I've wondered, but here's the thing. They're individuals and things can change like that. I've had cases where it looked like the whale was cooperating with us. Maybe it knows what we're doing. And suddenly the whole behavior changed. It became very dangerous. So they are individuals and you can't make assumptions. I'm always telling people in the trainings and on the efforts, you cannot assume that. Maybe it's happening. Who do we to know in all cases? We can't. Our interpretation of animal behavior is somewhat limited. We can't get into their heads entirely. So I don't know, but for the safety side of things, don't make the assumption. How would I use the analogy of, I know my niece is becoming a veterinarian, and veterinarians, you might go in and take Fido, the dog, the family dog, in and say, oh, Fido's never bit anyone. But what does the vet do? What does the veterinarian do? Still calls in the assistant. They still hold on to the dog and take precautionary measures. Yes, they do. And that's what we do with the whale rescue. We take those precautionary measures. We make no assumptions. But, there's definitely a human safety side here. It's challenging, and for the animal's sake too. And those YouTube videos you
Right.
mentioned, I have to say, the ones that get posted are the ones that actually went well, right? Sort of. I mean, they kind of went well.
Right.
I know of a lot more that didn't go well and they don't get posted. See,
Of
yep,
course.
yep.
Of course. Now, you've mentioned trainings a couple times, and I know from the notes that were sent to me by Vernon and yourself and the links, there's training taking place all around the country. What Describe what this training is like? I mean, who is actually signing up for it, for that
Wow.
matter, and what's it
Yep.
like?
Yeah. Well, as far as the people involved, generally speaking, it's people that are on the water. It's your professional mariners, your fishermen, your whale biologists, researchers, generally people that are marine researchers. They do make good candidates. I mean, I think I mentioned earlier that the fisherman knows gear, knows the environment. The whale biologist knows the animal side of things. The professional mariner knows safety and maybe some incident commands, system stuff. So you patch all that up and you get the great team. The trainings are a mix of classroom. I know I do like it's grown at 4 or 5 hours of classroom, reviewing the risk factors and going through risk assessment for us to the response side as well as the animal, and then getting into how's the different techniques of cutting the well free, the different tools they might use, because it is more involved than just that simple kegging technique. That was a generalization. And then we do some hands
Right.
on. A lot of times we will go out and we will simulate an entangled whale. We'll have one boat drag some gear, some rope and lines, maybe some netting. We've actually gone as far, Howard,
Hmm.
we've built a whale tail, almost life size, and a peduncle. That's the
Oh, wow.
area in front of the tail. And we'll wrap it up with gear, different
Right.
sizes, different tightness. And then we have to go through and they have to make the approach. They have to grab that whale. They have to pull themselves up, maybe an inflatable, smaller boat, and try to stay safe and reach out with that hook knife, that various knives. Some are fixed to the pole, some of them come off the pole and there's a line attached. We send them through all kinds of scenarios and even kind of mix it up sometimes. I'll throw in a tweak something like, okay, the whale's diving. You're going to have to walk yourself out now and let go. We're going to have to be patient. It's a big part of the training is patience. So that's a little bit of it right there in a nutshell, Howard.
What does the team numbers look like? Is it, I mean, you talked about the inflatable boats. I mean, you want to get out there as quickly as possible. So you probably need a boat that has got a good engine on it to get you to where you need to go. But then you're carrying inflatables with you or towing them behind with you. What is the team or the makeup that's actually going out once you do your assessment and you're looking to begin to disentangle this whale? What's that team look like in the moment, right? In the numbers.
Understood. Understood. It's about 6 to 8 people is a good full team. You can take more, but you need around that number to fill in all the roles, especially if you're going to launch that inflatable. For us, our inflatable is like a Navy SEAL inflatable. It's rolled up and stored on the larger boat, as you're alluding to. You'd need to get out there fairly fast, or not too fast. You don't want to hit a whale on the way, but fairly fast. Be rapid response. Get
Right.
out there, start the assessment. You unroll the approach boat, we call it, the inflatable, get that launched. And so now you're
Right.
going to need 2 to 3 people in that inflatable. Okay. A helms person, a bow person is going to be
Right.
throwing grapples, reaching out. A third person is nice as safety role. Okay. In that inflatable, they're going to make the
Right.
approach. Now your response boat, the boat that got you there, is now safety support. Okay.
Mhm.
They're going to watch over the approach boat
Okay.
because that's the boat that's getting close to the whale near the gear. And they're going to be documenting. There's a big part here we haven't mentioned is it's one aspect is cutting the whale free and doing that safely. The other aspect is gaining information
Mhm.
towards prevention. So the other roles, you're going to have a helms
Okay.
person, crew on the support boat. You're going to have documenters gaining information or documenting the effort. Can it be modified? Can we do better next time? You're going to have data people back to the science side of this, gaining information. You're going to have an iPad. You're logging everything in. You'll have a gear person. So the inflatable, the approach boat says, we're ready for the next tool. We're ready for another kegging buoy. This whale's going to take 2 kegging buoys. And so the gear person is setting another kegging buoy up.
Right.
The inflatable breaks off the whale, so to speak, comes back, grabs that, and is re-engaging the whale. So, and it's good to have a
Okay.
general safety person too, someone who's not focused on any one role to kind of take in the big picture. So those are some of the key roles.
Okay.
Also, you want communications people to, I don't know, let your shoreside contacts and the rest of the team know what's going on. So
When you're in the stage of completing this disentanglement, a rescue, I'm curious about the emotions that comes across you and the rest of the team. I mean, it just I have to believe that sense of satisfaction and just seeing now this wonderful animal freed and going about its business. What does that feel like?
it's immense, just like the animal. It is. And I do in the training and on the day you're responding, we're always trying to remind them, the team. They know that from the trainings there, they'll remind each other, we watch each other, that those emotions are kept in check while you're responding so that
Right.
you can express them at the end, but be careful. Don't let those get the best of you during the effort. I know we cut free a humpback whale cat. The little guy was only like 13 feet long. I mean, it's small for relatively speaking, and wrapped up
Right.
really tight too, by the way. And we had to watch ourselves on the baby whale. So we had to watch ourselves, but it's there. You are exactly right. And just, we do pretty well. We've been very successful at the sanctuary. I think it's 38 whales in Hawaii waters and up into the 40s beyond. And so we're very proud of
Right.
that. But the emotion, we kind of celebrate afterwards. And I should mention that we don't get them all. I don't want to make it sound like we get every whale free. So there are the sad ones too, by the way. There are times where you might get the gear off and the whale swims off and you're going, I don't know if you're going to make it. And we had one a couple of years ago that was probably
Yeah.
the case. It was too far gone, too impacted by the entanglement. By the time we got that report and we had our opportunity to cut the whale free. Yeah.
Sure. In addition to evaluating how well you did, what part of the process could we improve? Either how we do our work or the equipment we're using. What other lessons are you obtaining from this experience of being out there during this disentanglement effort?
Okay. Yeah. Well, there's one side is about the response. So what can we learn while we're doing this that could help us next time free another whale? Okay. And so it's sort of the risk assessment
Mhm.
on the human side, so to speak. And then there's that risk assessment on the animal side, which is the garnering of valuable information, by the way, that will help us mitigate the threat for many other animals in the future. And that's a big part of the effort. That's why those
Right.
documenters and data people are so important. They're helping us gain that information. So there's a lot of science behind the effort. And what's funny, the disentanglement might I mean, it might be all day. It might be multiple days. We have tags we can put into the gear. And if we can't get the job done in one day, you get to go back and find the whale and finish it, maybe finish getting more gear off the whale. But the
Right.
actual, forensics, the science behind it will last weeks. You're trying to figure out things like, and this is where the kegging is nice too, by the way, because it keeps the gear afloat. You get the gear off the whale and now it doesn't sink. So you pull it out of the ocean, you get in the boat, you take it home and you look at it and you go, what
Mhm.
was this? Where did it come from? How long was the whale entangled? How did the whale get entangled? So you're answering all the questions of who,
Yeah.
where, when, why, and how. And it's big. It's the biggest part that people don't realize. It takes the most time and in many ways is the most valuable. Yeah.
Sure. Is there a possibility that lessons learned from how the whale got entangled, what the entanglement was, the materials, that data then gets shared back to the fishing fleets, the maritimes, the other entities that maybe, whether intentionally or not, they're the ones that potentially could have been the culprits, that somehow you're influencing how they do things in the future.
Indeed. I mean, it's exactly the case. And I've had many fishermen, because pretty much every fisherman does not want to catch a whale. It's that bycatch. That's the last thing they want from the point of view of the whale. They don't want to hurt the whale. A lot of fishermen are conservationists, but also it's
Mhm.
loss of gear and loss of catch. And that can be money, can be regulatory things come into play, because if you catch enough whales, there are rules in play that will elevate that status, and regulations could come. So for all those reasons, I've had many a fisherman come up to me and ask me, what can I do? What have you learned? And they're part of the team. I mentioned them being part of the team as far as actually being part of the disentanglement team. They're part of the broader team as well. In many of them, it's just like any population, but there's a segment that has stepped up and they want to be part of that prevention side of things, reducing. It's really, when it comes down to reality, we're not going to prevent every single entanglement, but hey, we can mitigate, we can reduce this for everyone's sake. It's very broad based. Your point being, Howard, it's impact to animals and it's impact to humans. There's a human side of this impact wise.
Okay. Now, you had shared earlier about the global nature of this kind of work. So there are counterparts throughout the world wherever there are the whale species in the environment, out in the environment. Do you have instances where you go train with other teams elsewhere, say other countries, other parts of the world, or they come and work with the Marine Sanctuary or in Hawaii? How is that kind of inter-country or departmental interaction take place?
Indeed, indeed. I know that I mentioned, or you mentioned in the introduction, that I work in part with or under NOAA Fisheries and that Office of Protected Resources. So with them and with the sanctuaries, the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries, I know I've taken a part in training in Alaska. So in fact, for the last 18 years, I migrate with the whales. Okay. I'm here in Hawaii to bring camping ground, but they leave they're pretty much, there's not many whales here, not many humpback whales in Hawaii. So I'll go up to Alaska. I do trainings up there and help with response and with gear. I've done the West Coast of the US, help with BC, Canada, British Columbia. And then with Dave Matilla, that person I mentioned earlier, one of the pioneers, one of those global pioneers on this effort of cutting whales free. He's now with the International Whaling Commission, and he's asked me to help him train responders in Mexico and various countries in Central America and South America as well. Oh, we did a little apprentice program a number of years ago with some responders from Russia. Yep. So there is that global, I like to call it the fluke print being the whale's tail and the little bubble of water they might form when they're kicking along. We call it the fluke print. So broad fluke print.
Right. Gotcha. Excellent. I did a podcast episode earlier in the year with Paul Ciswerda. He runs Gotham Whale. And so this is a tour operation, and part of their logo is the fluke, and it's of the the fluke is actually New York City outline. But I mean, it's interesting. It gets back to not ever seeing a whale before. I mean, who knew that there were humpback whales in New York City? I mean, I didn't know that.
Almost certainly they were there, and it's a return to habitat. Yeah. It's cool. Yeah, cool and interesting.
Very cool. What other activities are going on at the sanctuary that our listeners would like to know?
Well, we wear many hats at the sanctuary. So a lot of what we do is education outreach. We're strong on that. I mean, it's foundational. And that gets everyone involved, right? So and promote stewardship and understanding of the animals in the environment. Then there's the science. We do a lot of science and monitoring. So that's back to understanding the animals and what their needs are. And then I know I lead another effort at the sanctuary. It's our health and risk monitoring program. So I'm working with a group of people that is going to monitor the animals so that their health, the condition of the individuals in the population, and what are the risks. So, I mean, we've been talking about entanglement, but there are other risk factors out there, like getting hit by a boat or pollution or things of that nature. So there are other risks that we're monitoring that. We're, again, back to the doctors. You're monitoring your patient.
Okay. I have to say, I mean, when I've chatted with you today, with Grace, with Michelle, I mean, you guys have like the perfect job. I mean, you're doing what you love. You're making a difference, whether it's the coral or whether it is at the Keys or Flower Garden Banks or the whales. I mean, I would have to admit, if somebody brings you into school to talk about what you do, I mean, there's probably a big smile on your face, I would imagine.
There is. I mean, I know I have to pinch myself sometimes, Howard, because it is a perfect job. And working with the National Marine Sanctuaries is great. I think Vernon mentioned that earlier, one of your other speakers. And it just brings in so many aspects, so many facets. It's the hands-on side, but then there's going back and taking what you've gained through that, being on the water with the animals, that direct ability to understand them and take that information. And then you've got to compile it. You got to disseminate and share it with the community, with other
Mhm.
researchers and responders in the case of response. And in the end of the day, all of that, it's so rewarding. And the mix that you have. And I tell my mom, again, she wanted me to become the medical doctor. And I said, Mom, it happened. I did, but I'm not a human medical doctor. I became the whale doctor, I guess, and a specialist of sorts with the whale disentanglement. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping I'm making her proud. So
I have no doubt that you are. I'm also curious about, you're in Hawaii. And again, another spirit of full disclosure. I have never visited Hawaii. I'm closer. I live in Las Vegas now, so I'm not as far as I used to be. But working with the cultural dynamics in Hawaii, because fishing, but being out on the water, it's a part of the Hawaiian culture. And I forget what the boats that they row were, but what's the dynamics of the local cultures and the work that you're doing at the sanctuary? I mean, is there an interaction for you to say, this kind of cool. We have this great interest in what we're doing to help steward the sanctuary and its inhabitants.
yeah, no, it's a great question, Howard. We work very closely with the Hawaiian community. It's prudent because they've been here so long and they've learned so much about the environment. There's so much to be gained there, if you will. And things like I was talking about team. One of the terms in Hawaii would be ohana, the family, the team. It is such a critical part, a big part
Hmm.
of their community. And so, and kuleana is another Hawaii term. It means the role, your responsibility to, and in this case, the context being to protecting and conserving. That's our mission statement of the sanctuary, conserving humpback whales in this case and their environment, the habitat. So we embrace
Hmm.
definitely and doing so more and more each and every year, which is refreshing, that Hawaiian community, the Hawaiian culture, because there's so much to be learned there, so much value.
What types of special activities are going to be underway as the sanctuaries celebrate their 50th anniversary? What's happening in Hawaii?
Boy, I know there's a lot going on. I mean, it's kind of current events, but I know they just put out, it's coming out. I think it's August 5th, a series of stamps. U.S. Postal Service stamps are going out. So
Okay.
I did just get an
Oh
email on
yeah,
that. So
yeah.
that's right there. And that represents the different
Okay, okay.
sanctuaries throughout the country. But yep, and the monuments, the 13. Yep. So, and yeah, I know one thing in the context of what we've been talking about that the numbers don't match up, but we have, well, they come up close, but we have 20 years of the 50 cutting whales free. We've cut, if you look at the big picture, all the whales we've cut free, we're close. We're at 45. We're not quite a match with the 50, but
All
I
right.
think of those things too, and just making those comparisons. So yeah.
When you are walking through the sanctuary, and I would imagine on land, obviously, I imagine there in Hawaii there has to be a visitor center and an education center. People can come to visit and learn. And you're walking down the hallway, just minding your own business, and this little kid tugs on your shirt sleeve and says, "What do you do, mister?" How do you respond to that?
It 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 pulls me right in. The other thing I wanted to become was a teacher. My mom thought, "Oh, you'd be a great teacher," and I still do it. So part of what I do is the outreach and education. I
Right.
mentioned many hats, and that will pull me right in because
Uh-huh.
a lot of times my office is above that visitor center. I'll take a break from the computer if
Okay.
I'm at the office, and I'll walk down there and I'll get chit chatting with people that have come in and we have a little display of some of the gear we've pulled off the whale and displays and some of the tools. And I'll get sucked in and I'll be like half an hour great talking to people about the whale rescue is just one topic of many. So, and of course, amazing animals.
Right. Of course. Of course. Before we head out, and there's a couple of features we have on our podcast. One of them is kind of the aha moment, and I can imagine what it might be for you. But as you look back on your career and the decisions you made. I mean, at first you were interested in being the medical doctor. Your mom wanted you to be a doctor and then a teacher. But kind of look back at what you're doing. Is there an aha moment that for you that you would like to share with your team that really brings home, God, I get to do this. This is
Yeah.
great.
Well, you almost always have an aha moment every time you're out there and you're cutting these animals free or working with them. Well, I should say whether you're researching them and you get that curious approach and a whale comes right up to the boat and looks at you, you see that eyeball and everything, or you're cutting a whale free. There is going to be multiple aha moments, but one that has crept up on me, and I knew this from the start, day one, but it's just been reinforced so much is the team effort, the value of that ohana. Again, that Hawaiian term, family, team. And I mean, I'm very fortunate that I built, I shouldn't say it that way, that we have built, that Hawaii has this great team. And it's just, boy, it's just an honor working with them. And it makes a big difference. I can't stress that enough. And I was mentioning that calf, I think earlier that we cut free, that baby humpback whale. And that was an aha moment along with the team because we had a second chance to free that calf. First one did not go well. In fact, the knives we were using, which are dull on the outside and sharp on the inside, were bouncing over the wrap on the calf and it wasn't catching it. And I don't know if you know this or people know this in general, but mothers give their calves very rich milk. It's like 50% milk fat. Like buying a D whole milk is 4% milk fat. So they grow very quickly. Right. And so the line had actually become embedded. So the knives weren't working. So in between, we built another knife. We literally had to build a knife, like a surgical knife that was sharp on the outside. And so we got another opportunity. Another tour boat found the whale. It was like 3 days later, mother calf. Mother was resting at depth. And so the calf, who cannot hold its breath that long, will come up several times by itself to take a couple breaths of air. And so we use that opportunity to kind of creep up very methodically with our new knife on the end of that pole. And about 2 hours it took us to get in position. The calf came up. Mom stayed below. She was used to us. She heard the engine for like 2 hours. And the calf came close enough to the boat that we put that knife like an inch over the tight wrap, caught the wrap. It exploded off the calf. I mean, it was gone. We never got that back. One frame of the camera that was on the end of the pole next to the knife captured that image of the line coming off the calf. And you mentioned emotions. I mean, at that point, the emotions got the best of us, baby whale and all that. And I was just afterwards going happy about the whale, but thinking this would not have been possible if that tour boat had not called, if the team had not arrived in time and everyone worked together. That's what made it possible. And it just reinforced it. And every day that's the case.
That's powerful. Before we head out, any final insight that you would like to share with our listeners about your work, the journey, just why conservation and stewardship are so important? Any kind of final insight that you'd like to share?
Well, I know one thing I'll get a question on quite a bit is how can I help? How might I be involved? And there's always we were talking about not putting gear in the water, or if you have to put gear in the water, make it more whale safe. And everyone can do this, whether it's the mariner or a fisherman. So there's one way they can deal with it. But then there's the response side. People ask me, well, how might I help you cut a whale free? And of course, we don't want to promote people doing this on their own. It's not safe. And then there's those legal aspects of keeping people safe and whales safe. So there's permits involved, but there are ways people can help, and it's huge. And that is the first responder role. I think I mentioned these are big needles in a big haystack. Those entanglements are out there, and yet we have a hard time finding them. And we rely on the on-water community, tour boat operators, fishermen, whomever, anyone out in the water, and they find a whale, they report it, call the local hotline, take some pictures. I mean, even just the other day, someone just sent some iPhone pictures. It's something and helps us out in that risk assessment. And then if we call back and say, we can come, we're going to come, we're going to try to free this whale, kind of work as a team in that regard, then stand by, monitor the animals safely, legal distances. For Hawaii, it's a 100-yard distance you want to give the whales. So And that's great. That's
Right.
so foundational in itself. And it's a direct way people can safely be involved and very appropriate. And there's that online course. I think you said you could make that available to folks for online courses for the different regions that we have links to. And this is a Nature Conservancy and NOAA Fisheries and the sanctuaries helped out. We led to hand with that little online course. So,
Okay. Well, we will definitely provide the links back to these courses. Thank you.
thank you.
Now, before
Mahalo.
we head out, where should our listeners look to find you guys and learn more about the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary?
Yeah, I would say, Howard, the websites. There's the Office of National Marine Sanctuary
Okay.
website at sanctuaries.noaa.gov. Then there's the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary, and that's Hawaii Humpback Whale, all one word here in this case, .noaa, NOAA.gov. Those are two good websites that will give you a lot of information, one more broad and one a little more specific for you, for Hawaii.
Fantastic. And we'll provide the backlinks to all of your social sites as well, especially I know you guys have a Facebook page as well. So,
Facebook page,
Ed,
social media.
it's been a pleasure. Yeah, yeah. I truly hope you and I get to meet in Hawaii because and by the way, to our listeners, and when you see the video on YouTube, and you're going to see Ed, he's chatting with me with this wonderful picture of a whale behind him, and it's like, wow. And I'm just like, it's like it's up there with the Northern Lights. I need to see a whale. But Ed, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day just to join us on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. And congratulations on being up here and part of the 50th anniversary celebration, and also the work that you're doing, and just to really be a steward for these wonderful species and the whales, and just the phenomenal stories that you share. And I appreciate that. And I know our listeners will as well.
Yeah. Well, mahalo, Howard. And it's been a pleasure chatting with you and the audience here. And you are welcome to come to visit us in Hawaii. So please do. And as well as the audience. It's a great environment. And being the opportunity to see these animals in their environment, and a very important one, being camping ground is its honor in itself.
Yes, definitely.
So, yeah. Mahalo.
Fantastic. Well, mahalo. Mahalo. So
Wow.
listen, Ed, stay on the line. We're going to do a quick close, and you and I can have a final chat. Thank you.
Understood.
All right, folks. What a fantastic, or I should say, another fantastic interview with another representative and team member from the National Marine Sanctuaries. This time, Ed Lyman, Natural Resource Specialist and Regional Large Whale Entanglement Response Coordinator at the NOAA Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale and National Marine Sanctuary. And just kind of hearing about the role he and his team play in protecting these wonderful animals and helping them out of the predicaments that they are in, and also to the first responders who are out there and helping to make those discoveries and communicating back to the hotline that there is an animal in distress. And hopefully we've heard examples of how Ed and his team have gone out and help to hopefully have a successful disentanglement. And really, it's very interesting to hear about the background and what it takes to become part of this team, and also the variety of the team members and all the important roles they're playing in helping during this disentanglement process. So hope you learned a lot today. Definitely go out to not only to the NOAA National Marine Sanctuaries website, but we're also going to provide the links to the Hawaiian Humpback Whales.noaa.gov. That is the sanctuaries website, and we'll also provide backlinks to the Facebook page as well. So again, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and really, becoming a part of this 50-year celebration of the National Marine Sanctuaries. As for us, you can find us on the outdooradventureseries.com. You can also find us on our Facebook and LinkedIn pages, Outdoor Adventure Series, and we are on the major podcast platforms. Just search for Outdoor Adventure Series. So wherever you get your podcast, that's where you can find this episode and all others. And we'll also have shorter episodes, which we call podcast shorts, up on YouTube. And we'll have one up with Ed in the coming weeks. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day. And we will see you on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.